The Buick Nailhead was among the best of the original post-war American V8s and among the most misunderstood. Here's the story behind Buick's powerhouse, including how it earned the name Nailhead. Unlike Cadillac and Oldsmobile, the Buick division of General Motors was in no particular rush to offer an overhead valve V8 in the post-war era. The Flint brand already had a dependable and refined 8-cylinder engine in its overhead valve straight 8, which first appeared in 1931. But when it became clear in the mid-1950s that the next-generation corporate B-body platform arriving in 1953 would not support the long, heavy straight 8 package, the division was pushed into action. The Fireball V8 of 1953, soon to become known as the Nailhead, was based on GM's corporate research efforts, along with Buick's extensive experience with the straight 8, and with the division's experiments with narrow-angle V8s. The original 322 cubic inches, 172 horsepower V8 that arrived in 1953 set the pattern for all the Buick Nailhead V8 engines to follow through 1966. The layout thoroughly embraced GM's latest short-stroke theories. All versions through 1966 employed forged, fully counterweighted cranks, and forged connecting rods. The Nailhead's identifying characteristics are its distinctive vertical valves, their stems at right angles to the pavement, and its underhand-style rocker arms, in which the top of the rocker operates the valve, the opposite of common practice. The lineage of this unusual valve train setup is easy to trace. Contrary to popular belief, the Buick small valves were not an accident or an oversight. They actually had a purpose, enabling a tighter, more efficient combustion chamber. Buick engineers were essentially trading volumetric efficiency and high RPM capability for combustion and mechanical efficiencies, a worthwhile trade in a road car. During the straight 8 era, engine development work at Buick had focused on airflow and camshaft lobe design, and the division was confident it could use these tools to provide decent breathing in the new V8 despite the smaller valve area. Ultimately, racers found that the small valves limited the engine's potential in high-performance, high RPM applications. But that was little concern to Buick engineers, who were optimizing the engine for smooth, economical operation in large sedans. Coupled to the division's torque converter-based Dynaflow automatic transmissions, the Nailhead V8 provided great gobs of torque for silent and effortless performance, exactly as intended. Domed pistons were required to obtain the desired compression ratio with the fully machined pentroof combustion chambers. Through the years, the Nailhead was produced in 5 displacements. The 264 cubic inches was produced in 1954 and 1955 and was a direct replacement for the 263 straight 8 and the only engine available for the Economy Special Series during its run. The larger 322 cubic inches was the original Nailhead, used by Buick from 1953 through 1956 in the Roadmaster, Super and Century models, and the Special in 1956. The 322 was also used in the 1956 through 1957 10,000 series conventional cab Chevrolet heavy-duty trucks. The 364 was introduced in 1957 and produced through 1964. The Special came standard with 2-barrel carb and 250 horsepower, where all others had the 4-barrel, 300-horsepower engine. Buick, like most of its competitors, continued to expand their durable V8 engine to larger displacements. The 364 was enlarged to 401 cubic inches and produced from 1959 to 1966. Originally a 401, it was later redesignated a 400 to meet 1960s GM directives for maximum displacement engines in mid-size cars. The familiar 401 cubic inches version of 1959 through 1966 was used in the 1965 Skylark Grand Sport. The 401 or 400 became Buick's full-size and later intermediate muscle car power plant of choice, used in the company's Skylark Grand Sport and Buick Wildcat models, among others. The engine was variously designated the Wildcat 375, Wildcat 410, and Wildcat 445 depending on the foot-pounds of torque each version produced. The Wildcat 410 was the 2-barrel carbureted engine, standard on the 1962-63 LeSabre. The Wildcat 375 was a no-cost option for the 1962-63 LeSabre that used a lower compression ratio to run on lower-octane fuel. The various Wildcat engines had decals on their air cleaners indicating their version. However, the four-barrel edition of the 1966-67 small block Buick 340 V8 was also labeled Wildcat 375 on its air cleaner, but was not a Nailhead engine. The Wildcat 445, with a single four-barrel carburetor, was the standard engine in the Invicta, 1959-1966 Electra, 1962-1966 Buick Wildcat, 1963 Riviera and 1965 Riviera. The 1964 and 1966 Riviera models used the 425 with a single four-barrel carburetor, labeled Wildcat 465, as standard equipment. Mounted on a trolley, Buick 401s were also used as starter motors for the SR-71 Blackbird supersonic jet. The ultimate Nailhead V8, a 425 cubic inches, was produced from 1963 to 1966 with optional dual quad Carter carburetors. It produced 360 horsepower at 4,400 RPM, the largest displacement version of the Nailhead. It began as an option on the 1963 Riviera and was later available on the Wildcat and Electra models. The 1964 and 1966 Riviera used the 425 engine as standard equipment. While the Nailhead had its limitations for all-out performance use, it had its successful proponents in racing, including Max Balchowski of Old Yeller Road Racing fame and drag racer Tommy Ivo, who learned his Buick engine-building tricks hanging out at Max's Hollywood shop. TV Tommy's trademark Model T Street Roadster ran a Nailhead V8, as did a number of his early dragsters, which sported 1, 2, and even 4 Buick V8s. Shown here is Ivo with the Showboat, his four-engined, four-wheel drive exhibition dragster.